Okay, so I hope you guys are comfortable with Spring IOC. So if you, there is a lot of stuff like, I provided you the basic, like, I can say more than basic, and what you called, at least IOC point of view, I covered as much as I can, and yeah, so you, even if you guys go back and look at this core container module, you guys can understand like most of the part like discussed. I was like features yeah, this is the IOC seventh section, third section, seventh point, IOC container. If you go here, this is the page, complete page. Okay, different ways of doing, how do you load that into constructor based or setter based, all kind of scenarios we discussed about this. So just go back and read this page. It's very huge page actually. Yeah, this is like a singleton scope and prototype scope, different sections. So with that I can conclude like we are pretty much covered. So let's move on to Spring MVC. Okay. So Spring MVC is like, if, what you can say, it provides a lot of stuff. First thing, okay, now IOC is the container, right? Like a Spring IOC container will take care of creating your beans and massaging the beans that as per your requirements, and providing that beans and keeping it ready before your, whichever the object is looking for, whatever the dependencies, keeping it ready for the object that is looking for, and then using simple annotations, like auto wire and the stereo type concepts like @controller, @service, @repository, @component, and then @auto wire, @qualifier. And in XML file you need to communicate like you are using annotations, and you can say like which packages you need to scan, and you can provide property placeholders to load the properties, and so these are all the stuff that can be covered in IOC, right? Using that Spring MVC framework. What is Spring MVC? MVC is model view controller, right? That is a design pattern. Using the design pattern, Spring has been built like, okay, earlier if you remember, we did like web application, small web application using JSP, servlets and JDBC, right? So how does the communication happens between JSP and servlets? Using servlet, your own servlet class, using request and HTTP request, HTTP response, and then you are going to make your typical simple class into servlet by making extending HTTP servlet, and by overriding certain methods based on your requirements like get, post, or service, destroy, whatever the methods. You're going to accept the request. Before that you're going to configure those servlets, your own servlets in web.xml using servlet name, servlet class, and corresponding mapping, servlet mapping with servlet name and URL pattern. So that based on the URL pattern request that you come, like, if somebody says slash student, it will look for slash students URL is there in the URL pattern, then it identifies corresponding servlet class and it identifies corresponding class, servlet name, and then from there servlet name to servlet class and reaches to servlet class by looking at the methods that you have. If you have post and get, and it looks for what kind of request it is. If it is get, it will go to the get method. If it is post, it will go to the post method. From then onwards, and the data that client passed will be available in HTTP request object. So you're going to extract that data, and then you populate that data and pass it to the backend system, and you call the JDBC and insert into the backend system, and you communicate to the client that whether it's success or not. If it is success, you promote him to next level. If it is failure, you're going to communicate the failure reasons. So same thing Spring MVC also does, much more sophisticated way. And this is the overall picture of Spring Web MVC. What is that? So if you look at here, incoming request, and we have servlet class, right? If you remember, let me open, we can easily understand. And this one. So you're going to configure each and every servlet, right? If you have 10 servlet class, you're going to configure 10 servlets here, right? Instead of that, Spring comes up with a concept called I build my own servlet. That is the client facing servlet. From then I build a framework such that I can identify corresponding request in the classes that you wrote, and then I'll provide whatever the client provided data to you. You parse the data, and then you identify which view in the sense which JSP page, which UI page that I supposed to go, inform to me. I will take care of rendering that page. I will take care of rendering that page with the data that you provided through the model. So simply look at here. I'll read out because highlighting is little challenging with this diagram. So I'm just reading out, see the diagram. Okay, first incoming request comes. Okay, there is a front controller. Front controller is nothing but Spring MVC wrote one built-in servlet class, like the way you wrote register servlet, login servlet. It wrote its own built-in servlet class called dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet, that is the heart of Spring MVC application. So incoming request comes, it was listened by dispatcher servlet, and then from dispatcher servlet it will delegate that request to controller class that you wrote. Let's say you have a login, you have registration, you have admin, you have faculty. There are 4 different servlets. So you can, from now onwards, we're going to call servlets as controllers. Okay, from now onwards we're going to call servlets as controllers. So incoming request, front controller is dispatcher servlet. From there the request has been delegated to the corresponding servlet class, corresponding controller class. If it is login request, it will go to the login controller. If it is a registration request, it will go to the registration controller. If it is a admin request, it will go to the admin controller. If it is a faculty request, it will go to the faculty controller. If it is a payment request, if it goes to payment controller. The mapping happens in servlet Spring MVC understandable configuration file, which we know that XML file. Okay, so in web.xml is something servlet understands. Okay, web.xml tomcat understand server slash tomcat understands or slash you need to communicate through web.xml. Same thing, Spring IOC and Spring MVC can be under Spring MVC slash Spring IOC understands data earlier, data through XML and whatever the XML that you wrote, right? XML and annotations, Spring annotations, you can say. Okay. So in so whether you write Spring, whether you write studs, whether you write JSFs, JSF, any framework, it has to be deployed in the Tomcat. So Tomcat and Spring will communicate through web.xml. And once Tomcat give the control to the Spring, Spring has to give control to you, right? First request comes to Tomcat server. Okay, let's say server slash Tomcat. Now we are using Tomcat, so just want to search Tomcat. Request comes to Tomcat. Tomcat has to smartly detect through web.xml and it has to give it to Spring framework, you can say. And Spring framework smartly need to identify your classes and give the control, provide the control and data given by client, right? Does it make sense to you guys? Okay, I'll read it. I kind of making sure like you guys should not get confused. Like this is a Tomcat, okay? Tomcat will understand with web.xml. In web.xml, you can convey that I'm using Spring MVC. And so request comes, Tomcat resolves the request and it using web.xml, it will use to Spring MVC. Spring MVC need to smartly resolve using its XML file configuration or controllers or annotations, provide it to your controller classes. From then onwards, it's your responsibility to process the data all the way to the backend. Make sense? So how the communication happens servlet and Spring framework using web.xml. How the communication happens between Spring framework and your classes, the XML configuration or through the annotations, right? So let's go back. So from front controller is dispatcher servlet. From here, how the controller will be resolved using your XML configuration that you do. So the request will be processed to controller. Controller will handle the request, and then which means from the controller to it will go to the backend. It process the data. It will create, if it is a client providing request, it will take all the way, and if it is client requesting request, it will go back to the backend system and fetch the data and give it back to the client. So creates the model. Model is data if it is coming inside, it's incoming model. If it is going outside, outgoing model. Let's just remember, like request kind of thing. Data, actual data. Okay, it will create the data and then it will delegate back into the front controller. It doesn't directly return back to the user. It will return to the front controller. It's front controller responsibility to understand the data that you sent and to understand the JSP page that you want to display. It use its view template configuration. It will resolve it and give it back. Okay, so just have a basic idea at this moment. We will do a program and then we will map it back so that you guys better understand what exactly happened. Agreed? Okay, so let's try to do a small program. Jumping into program is fun. So let's go to same Marvin project. As it is a web application now we are doing, so I'll go for web app. Batch for Spring MVC. One, I'll just call it as one. In my Spring configuration, did I configure MVC as well? Let me see. If I configured already, I don't need to. Yeah, Spring Web is there. Web MVC also there. So I don't need to. Don't worry. So let me close all these guys. In this one, two things are common. What are those things? Two things common. Just go here, copy all the configuration to save our time. Okay, so next thing is web.xml, right? Web.xml. So this is empty for now, right? So what you need to do here, you can call it as anything, yeah, just its name, Spring MVC. Batch for well info. And then this is where we got configure, right? What we do generally, let's write simple servlet. Inside servlet, what we have? Servlet class. Before that, what we have? Servlet servlet name. Nice. And then what we'll have here? Servlet mapping. Inside servlet mapping, what we'll have? Servlet name. URL pattern. Okay. Servlet name MVC. I'm just calling some name, right? MVC dispatcher. Okay. Or else just for the lake of Spring MVC dispatcher. Okay. What name you're going to configure, right? This is generally what you used to configure. If you have a login, you're going to configure login servlet, all this. But as per Spring MVC, what it says, you configure the front controller and I will take the responsibility of redirecting and delegating the requests. I will do a lot of stuff for you before reaching your controller. Okay, and I will take care of your responses. I'll take care of your requests so that I'll be the responsible being the front controller. So I built framework like this, follow these standards so that your development phase will be faster and you can more focus on business logic rather than technical. Okay, so what is what you called dispatcher servlet? I mean front controller for Spring MVC. Spring MVC front controller is dispatcher servlet. Where it is? It is in org dot Spring framework. Yeah, Spring framework dot web dot. You don't need to remember. Don't worry. How can I remember all this? You just one time just get it. Dispatcher servlet. You can get the package name. Dispatcher. The more you practice, the more you can easily navigate around. Dispatcher servlet. Makes sense. This is the dispatcher class. Every time request will you reach to first time. Okay. So here you need to map. What is the name you need to give? Same name what you have. And URL pattern is, let's say, slash anything, and which means everything should go through this guy. That right? Okay, that's nice. So what we can do, and let's go back to our program. Before going to program, there is one more thing we need to do, is you need to parallel to WebINF, parallel to web.xml, parallel to web.xml, you need to create one more XML file. What is that XML file? The name of the XML file should be name of the dispatcher servlet. Remember this. Name of the XML should be name of the dispatcher servlet. It must be, otherwise it doesn't detect automatically. So now you guys understand. So you deploy this application. When the request comes, slash anything, right? It will identify Spring MVC dispatcher. Spring MVC dispatcher goes to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet's logic inside is smart enough to read the XML file within the same level with the name of servlet name. You getting my point? Let me see if I can show you that logic. I don't think so, but I'll try. This is the dispatcher class. When it is loading, it will identify. I don't know where it is. Anyways, so if you look at here, right, framework, it extending framework servlet. If you go to framework servlet, HTTP servlet, HTTP in application. See, internally it is also extending HTTP servlet. All we're trying to do is, instead of you doing HTTP servlet, I will take care of doing extending HTTP servlet, and I will take care of redirecting the request. You don't need to worry. Okay, so basically immediately, so once the request comes, it will go to this guy, and this guy, what he will do, he will start looking for Spring MVC-dispatcher.xml file, and he will start reading the data inside the XML Spring MVC XML file configuration. Okay, So here what we need to do, we need to copy a couple of things from other XML that we have. Let's copy paste and remove it, right? That would be the best. And then this piece we need, right? Okay. And then one more thing what we used to do, context component scan, and we are calling it as, what is the package? We haven't created a package, so let's, why it isn't created a package for us. No, it doesn't have in Java. New folder Java, src main Java. Okay, inside Java you need to create package. Okay, what we can call is com dot bellinfo dot spring MVC dot spring app, let's say spring app dot MVC. Cut it. Okay, so this is the package you need to communicate, right? So you can mention the same package name here, what you need to scan, right? So what you can say, com dot bellinfo dot spring app dot MVC. Okay. There are two things we need to see here. Can I start here? Can I start Java? Let's start. So remember, these two things are common across. Basically, this part we are going to configure. View resolver, this part, the highlighted part. Now I'm going to configure this view resolver, which means once you identify the request, once you process the request, when you return it back, right, front controller is need to be smart enough to detect based on your model, based on your JSP, it needs to resolve. So this view template related configuration we are doing now. Okay, what is that? You need to communicate bean class, the class name is org dot spring framework web dot servlet dot view dot internal resource view resolver. Don't worry, I mean I'll explain quickly, you can understand. Okay, internal view resolver. Inside internal view resolver you're going to have property. You need to provide two properties, property name, prefix value equal to, and another one is property name suffix value equal to. So prefix is basically what happens here. So while going back, while returning the response, basically what you will do, somehow front controller detects your controller class, let's say login controller, and user is provided is username password. So in controller class, in your login controller class, you have username and password, and you went to the database, and you from controller you went to the database and verified in the database, and you find that the user with username password is there. So you're going to communicate back to the user saying that whatever the credentials you provided is proper. So I am allowing you to the success page or login success page. And you're going to show him menu. You're going to show him his courses. You're going to show him his pending courses. You're going to show him his grade, something like that. So these information you are giving it back to the UI. While giving it back, you will say, this is the JSP page, this is the data, and that request will go back to the front controller. Front controller will use this piece to identify where the JSP page is there, and it will add the data to the JSP and return it back to the client, renders the data into the JSP corresponding view page and give it back to the client. So prefix is, if any request prefix is, so look inside web hyphen, that is standard, okay, web hyphen inf / pages. You can call it pages or HTML, whatever it is. This is where I am keeping my JSP pages. That's what you are communicating there. This is where I am going to keep all my JSP pages. So if once I am success, if I say success, go and look /webinf /pages /success. Look for that success. What is suffix? Prefix, that is. Suffix is, if you are using JSP pages, mention it as /JSP. So what it overall does is, let me show you to you. What it actually does is, this is comment section I'll just mention. If response by your controller is success, then this view resolver, internal resource view resolver, there are different view resolvers. This is one is internal resource view resolver. This view resolver will append prefix and suffix like, then result becomes /web hyphen inf /pages /success.jsp. So this keyword will be translated into this, and it looks for success.jsp in your web.inf. You don't have pages now, so you need to create a folder. And you don't have success.jsp, you need to create success.jsp. Otherwise it will give an error, I couldn't find. So this view resolver internally, identifies the pages using the suffix and prefix sections. Make sense? Are you guys with me? Cool. And there is one more thing. This is basic thing, right? How does the response will be identified using the view resolver? Okay. Next point is how to load the properties, right? We already property placeholder, we used it, right? So another way Spring provides is bean id equal to, this is fixed message resource, message source, I guess, message source class equal to org dot spring framework dot context dot support dot resource bundle message source. Resource bundle message source. Let me check. Yeah, we have same one. Okay, this one, another bean. This is used to load the properties. Earlier we know property placeholder, but this is Spring provided resource bundle resource. So you need to provide property name equal to another way. I'm just showing through Spring name and base name. What is the property name kind of thing? Value is, let's say, messages. Okay, messages. Oh, this okay. This piece you are talking about, right? So basically this piece, if you look at, right, in order to support MVC, it is MVC you need to import. In order to support util package, you need to have namespace for util. In order to support context, you need to have is context. In order to support beans configuration, you need to have beans. So what I did is, to save time, and this is going to be universal, you know, even whatever the project that you get, if you are doing Spring, this is going to be universal. So in my section, two parts I have. This is one piece. Here you have MVC, context and beans. It doesn't have util, it doesn't have util, it has context, it has beans, it has MVC, it doesn't have util. So util, I copied it from other project, I guess. Let me go back and show it to you. Yeah, this one. Util schema property for in order to util work, util package, in order to util works, I copied it from here. I just keep it there first to save some time. That's it. Okay. You can just copy paste this additional field, whatever it is there in the earlier one. Make sense? You still need clarity? Okay. So what does it, what this bean does is simple. Your resources folder is here, right? Go back here. Resources are nothing but property files. Okay. Messages dot properties. Okay. Now because of this configuration, it's a Spring responsibility to load that has been there inside messages. Base name is messages and dot properties will get appended automatically. Okay. So this whatever you wrote here, whatever you wrote, these key values here will be Spring's responsibility to load. You just communicated your property file through resource bundle message resource. Okay. Okay. And one more thing we need to do is annotation config and annotation driven as well. We need to do. This one is required in order to make your MVC to work. Annotation. MVC, I am running MVC using annotations. That's what. Configures the annotation, sorry. What it does, MVC annotation driven, configures the annotation driven Spring MVC controller programming model, which means I am using annotations for Spring MVC. That's what you're communicating. Okay. By adding this line. Okay. Apart from that, nothing. This one will communicate you are using Spring IOC, all the what you call the injections or stereotypes. I'm using annotations. This one Spring MVC annotations I'm using. Okay, cool. Yes, we can go with now. Did you understand? Request comes here. It will go to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet smartly detects Spring-MVC dispatcher.xml file, and it goes to dispatcher.mvc XML file, and it identifies. Okay, there are message properties, and it loads the properties, and then it loads this internal resource view resolver, and keep it in mind. So whenever it is response going back, it will look for what is the response page that you are saying. If it is success JSP, let's say, and it appends WNF pages /success and pref suffix as .jsp, and so now you will have the JSP page that it resolve that page and return it back to the, it will render the data that you provided and return it back to the client. Okay, so what is data, what are JSPs, where are the controller classes, those part we are going to start now. Okay, so simple way, simple program, let me try. From now onward, I said like I'm going to create what? I'll create a new package. Yeah, let's create a package for the standard. I'm going to call it as controller package. Inside MVC controller package, what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a new class called hello controller. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to do much. Okay, hello controller. In a hello controller, so somehow your dispatcher servlet should be smart enough to detect this guy, this hello controller. How does it control it? How does it does two things. One is @controller. What is this @controller? Stereotype. What it does? It will create the bean. Okay, that's good. I mean, it will create the bean and it will look for any dependencies that you configure inside using auto wires, and it will create those beans first, and then it will create hello controller. That is good. But how come dispatcher servlet that you configured in web.xml is going to identify your hello controller class? This is the first class, that Java class, that it's going to interact, right? Another annotation tag called @request mapping. @request mapping. Inside you're going to communicate what URL it is. For time being, I'm just saying anything in this application, anything in this application comes with, if it is comes with slash, then come to this controller class, dispatcher servlet. If you get any request from Tomcat with slash, come to this controller. So what will happen? So this class will be created, and immediately it looks for this annotation, request mapping, request getting mapped to this controller. How does, which request need to map to this controller? Anything which comes with slash. So you can write another controller class called, let me tell you, quickly write it so that you can sense it. Okay, I'll call it as student controller. Okay, Here again same thing, you need to say stereotype controller and then request mapping. If you use in Eclipse, if you are using Eclipse and if you are using Windows, if whenever you see these kind of errors, control 1 will automatically import control 1. Okay, so here I'll say anything comes with student come to this controller. Make sense? Anything comes with slash come to here, anything comes with student controller come here. Make sense? So I'm just going to show you for now controller class, hello controller. Here again you're going to write a methods, public methods, which is going to return whatever the return that you want. Print welcome. Okay, I'll just say okay. Here again it's a lot of configuration, one-time configuration. Once you understand, done. Okay, so don't think too much. Oh, how many configurations I remember. One time understanding Spring MVC, done. You don't need to worry about it. Wherever you go, you're going to do the same thing. Okay. So again, you may write multiple methods, right? So how do you map? So I'm going to say again, request mapping. I'm going to say request mapping, and then inside I'm going to communicate. It's simple. If you go here, request mapping, right? This is the request mapping. What and all it takes? Name, value, path, method, params, headers, consumes, produces. These are all the requests that it takes, right? So if something comes with slash, as I'm going to have only one method and it mapped with this guy, so I'm not giving any additional value. So the method is, I'm going to say method is method equal to request method request, what kind of request it is, dot, this guy is not detecting, so Spring dot, what kind of method? Just a request, get request. Okay, I'm not sending. So anything incoming, if data is coming from, if you're requesting, if client is requesting that some data from the backend system, it will become get. If client is sending some data to the backend system, it will become post or put. Okay, just remember request method is get. Okay, nice. And then excuse me, here model map. This is the model map, anything you can call model or something. Okay, model map, which will carry the, is it model map is from UI, right? Yeah, data. So so basically this is the model that carries the data and that returns the data back. Okay, so this is the print welcome model map. In this model, if you remember HTTP servlet, what are you going to do? Request, you extract the request and you append the attributes, set attribute, and you add all the key value pairs that you want to return it back to the client, and then you use request dispatcher by passing the request and response objects to that request dispatcher, right? For instead of same, the replica of doing Spring through Spring is model dot add attribute, some key, some name, okay, some message, hello world, something like that. Okay, this is what you want to return to the client. If somebody comes to this application, if somebody comes to this application and try to access with slash, you want to return them message hello world. You want to return them hello world. That's it. Okay. So you want to return, right? Return home. Okay, so now I'll go back and try to explain you guys what will happen, right? Where can I write that piece? Here I'll write, just for the sake of understanding, right? Okay, what exactly happens is, let's say somebody says http colon localhost or server some host 8080 slash, what is the project name? They need to come through the project name, right? So batch for hyphen spring hyphen MVC hyphen 1 slash. If somebody says this guy, this is the project will be resolved, is been deployed in 8080 Tomcat server in the local system, and they are coming with slash, then what you need to do, dispatcher servlet need to identify dispatcher servlet inside slash goes to dispatcher servlet goes to spring MVC dispatcher servlet.xml, and here it looks for, okay, there is annotation driven MVC, so it looks for all the controllers that has been applied around at the rate controller at the rate control. So it will create those student controller and hello controller, and it will remember hello controller is mapped to slash and student controller is mapped to slash student. So in our case the request came as a slash, so it will recognize hello controller class, right? Okay, so and then inside it looks for any, how many methods are there? There is only one method. Is there any URL that has been mapped? Nothing is been mapped. And what kind of request it is? When you say slash and if you are not passing any data, you are just requesting your data, then that becomes get. So this method will be identified, and modal map automatically created by Spring MVC. And once it enters inside, you're going to do what you're going to do inside the model map. You're going to append some data, you're going to add certain data, and then you are returning home. Once you return home, where it will go? Once you return it will go back to the front controller. So front controller knows your Spring MVC XML file, and then it will look for, is there any resolvers that has been configured. Here we configured internal resource view resolver, and then it identifies web-inf pages. Okay, this is the prefix, so it will go back immediately. Okay, and so it will add this for home, and then what it will do, what is the suffix that has been there, start .jsp, right? So it will take that suffix and go back to the HTML, and it looks for this page. Here you don't have that page. Once that page is identified, whatever the message data that you used, that will be rendered. If you configure this data, if you render this data, it will be rendered and then displayed back to the client. I hope you guys are catching. Okay, I'll repeat you again if you guys don't understand, but try to go back and listen again whatever we discussed. So here what we need, home.jsp. Did we return home or hello, right? We need to return hello because we need hello.jsp kind of thing. Okay, so I'll create what, new JSP file. I'll call it as hello.jsp. Awesome. So inside hello.jsp, now we have nothing. What we can do, you got the message, right? You, in your hello controller, in your model object, you have the attribute. You can extract that attribute using message, right? So what I will do here, h1 tags, dynamically extracting the value is like this, whatever we have in message. Let me see if I remember this guy. Yeah, some just junk. First thing what we need to do, how to build an application, right? You need to go back, right click, move and build, clean, install. These are the jobs that you're selecting. Apply. I think it should give some error. As our programs never succeed in first step, right? Wow, that's awesome. So next thing is what we need to do. You need to deploy your application. Snapshot.war file into right click, add or remove, Spring MVC, then finish, then start. Application started. Now what we need to do, HTTP localhost what is the project name, hello world, right? So if I go back and Shiva, As it is Java change, I may need to restart. Why it is not showing it up? Maybe we need to. Sometimes changes takes times to reflect actually. So what I will do, this one time I will test it. If it doesn't show up, okay, I'll remove this guy. As you modified what you need to do, generally it should automatically take that latest changes. I don't know why it is not. So I'll build it again. Add or remove Spring MVC again. For some reason it didn't pick it up, so I'll stop this guy. Okay, I'm just removing this guy, and then I'm removing this guy. I'm starting this guy. I'm just sometimes it happens actually. So I'm just the way what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning it out and verifying it. Nothing is there, kind of thing. Okay, I'm stopping it, and then I'm going to add again. Now I'm going to start again. So the server is not starting. We'll see what is the problem. Okay, this time it got deployed. Sometimes it doesn't pick. What I will do, I'll break this guy. I'll need to go and clean it out. 1 second. It is. Yeah, that it also may be reason, right? I don't think so. For these cookies may not comes into. One way we can do is close this guy. I need to go Tomcat and clean it out. Give me 1 second. Batch 4, right? Batch 4 icon spring. Here. Nothing to do. Holy cow. Now what I will do, hang on there. If it doesn't work, I don't want to waste your time. So yeah, I mean, at least we saw it, right? One side, what is the reflection, whatever the message that we sent, I will go back and clean it out and I'll see. There is nothing related to the code problem, just it's related to sometimes, if you deploy too many projects into Tomcat in your local, if my system is too much heavy load and it couldn't do certain functionalities that it's supposed to do. Apart from that, nothing. What the hell this one is configured? Anyways, so this one is not taking it out. Somewhere this, whatever the changes that we're doing, right? For some reason it is not getting reflected. Did I mention hello, right? Hello.jsp and then well, hang on, we'll see. You guys also will learn, right? Something. I hope this one should reflect.
Hello.
Yep.
I think we need to rebuild the program again.
I did twice, Ray.
Okay.
I did twice, but for some reason this idiot not allowing me. Let me do one thing. Rename. Hello, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, my typing is difficult. Okay, and then ideally this should be smart enough to pick it up. I'll just clean it and see what will happen. So now we shouldn't have target. Can delete this target. Yeah, that is the problem. Let me go here. See if I can do something there. Stop. Okay. And then right click this guy. Delete. Thanks. Just I'll restart this guy, okay? Eclipse I'm just restarting. Basically the target folder is out of sync. Let's try. Where did this time we haven't built. Something is getting locked. So, okay, this is the last time trying and don't want to waste. Thought it helps you resolve. But nothing is there. Okay. Now I'm going to build this guy. Writing code is not a problem. This irritates. These things really irritates. Start it. We'll make sure it's dummy. Okay. And make sure. Okay. Let's say restart. It is not redirecting into slash comes. It's not redirecting into hello 23.jsp. Why the heck? Anyways, I'll resolve that and I'll let you know guys tomorrow. So for now, just you guys are getting the overview of the flow, right? That's important. Okay, you guys got the overview how the request comes in and request goes out, right? Tomorrow we'll do, like adding some data, passing some data from the client and looking at the data, what exactly happens, all the stuff. So